At the candlelit gala where crystal glasses chimed like fragile promises, my billionaire husband rose with a smile that once stole my heart and declared his love for another, expecting my world to shatter in tears. But I gave him nothing but silence, the kind that echoes louder than any scream, and watched his empire of illusions begin to crack. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. I am Mr. ZAHA. Thanks for tuning in today. A kind words from a man who has seen it all. Marriage are not mostly bed of roses. Sometime you need more of. More of what? Can't say. Continue watching, and you will surely know what to do in situations like this. Kindly hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So let's get started. The penthouse on the 72nd floor of the Langham Tower overlooked Manhattan like a king surveying his kingdom, endless spires of glass and steel twinkling under the perpetual twilight of city lights. Elizabeth Hale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, a flute of vintage Dom Perignon dangling loosely from her fingers, the bubbles rising like unspoken questions. The silk of her emerald gown whispered against her skin as she shifted, the fabric a cool contrast to the warmth of the room behind her. Michael's laughter echoed from the open-plan living area, rich and resonant, the kind that had first drawn her in a decade ago. She turned slowly, her dark hair cascading in loose waves over one shoulder, catching the golden glow of the Murano chandelier. Michael was there, of course, her husband, the man who'd built Hale Tech from a garage startup into a $5 billion empire, his broad shoulders filling out a tailored Tom Ford tuxedo as if it had been sewn onto him. He was surrounded by a cluster of admirers, venture capitalists with Rolexes that matched their egos, socialites whose diamonds dripped like liquid ambition. His hand rested casually on the small of a woman's back, Antonella Vargas, the new creative director he'd poached from a rival firm 6 months earlier. Elizabeth had met her only twice, once at a board meeting, where Antonella's sharp bob and sharper wit had commanded the room, and again at a charity luncheon, where her laughter had intertwined too seamlessly with Michael's. Elizabeth sipped her champagne, the effervescence sharp on her tongue. Antonella leaned in closer now, her crimson lips brushing Michael's ear as she murmured something that made him throw his head back in that boyish grin she remembered from their early days. Days when he'd been Michael Hale, not yet billionaire, just a dreamer with calloused hands from coding marathons and eyes that lit up like code compiling successfully when he looked at her. Elizabeth, darling. Michael's voice cut through the chatter as he extricated himself from the group, crossing the Persian rug with the easy grace of someone who owned every inch of the space. He pressed a kiss to her temple, his cologne, sandalwood and citrus, a scent she'd once buried her face in after lovemaking, lingering like a ghost. You look stunning. As always. She smiled, the curve of her lips practiced, polite. Thank you. The party's a success. Your investors seem enthralled. He chuckled, low and warm, slipping an arm around her waist. His touch was familiar, possessive, but there was a new edge to it. A distraction, like his mind was buffering on the next big algorithm. They're eating out of my hand. Hale Tech's valuation just hit another milestone. We're talking unicorn status on steroids. I'm proud of you, she said softly, meaning it. She'd been there from the beginning. The all-nighters in their cramped Brooklyn walk-up, where she'd brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint, while he debugged lines of code that would one day make them millionaires, then billionaires. She'd handled the press when the first big acquisition hit, smiled through the Forbes covers that called him the relentless innovator, while omitting her role as the quiet anchor, the one who suggested the pivot to sustainable AI that saved their first funding round. Michael's eyes flicked back to Antonella, who was now animatedly gesturing with a glass of red, her laughter a silver bell in the din. Antonella's a genius with the new branding campaign. She's got vision, like I used to, before all this. He waved a hand at the opulence, the Basquiat on the wall, the Steinway grand in the corner where Elizabeth sometimes played Chopin to unwind. Like we used to, Elizabeth corrected gently, her fingers tracing the stem of her glass. Remember the whiteboard in Brooklyn? Covered in our scribbles. His smile faltered for a fraction, a glitch, barely perceptible. Yeah, good times. He squeezed her waist, then released her. Speaking of vision, I've got a surprise for you. Next weekend, dinner at Le Cirque. Private room, just family and close friends. Celebrating 8 years. Elizabeth's heart stuttered. 8 years since that rainy evening in Central Park, when he'd proposed under a gazebo with a ring he'd designed himself. Simple platinum band embedded with a tiny circuit board pattern, symbolizing their shared future in tech and love. A surprise, she echoed, warmth blooming despite the chill she'd felt growing between them these past months. Trust me, he said, winking, that old spark flickering. It'll be unforgettable. She wanted to believe him. God, she did. But as he drifted back to Antonella, their heads bending close over a tablet displaying mock-ups, Elizabeth felt the first thread of unease unravel. The week blurred into a haze of obligations. Elizabeth managed the Hale Foundation by day, pouring Michael's wealth into literacy programs for underprivileged kids, a passion she'd nurtured long before the billions rolled in. She'd always been the heart behind his hustle, the one who reminded him that success wasn't just stock tickers, but lives changed. Evenings brought galas and networking dinners, where she'd glide through rooms on his arm, her laughter a perfect counterpoint to his booming charisma. But lately, his arm felt looser, his gaze wandering to the woman in scarlet gowns who always seemed to appear at the periphery. Antonella, with her portfolio of groundbreaking designs and whispers of synergy that sounded too intimate. One night, as they lay in their king-sized bed, Egyptian cotton sheets tangled from half-hearted lovemaking, Elizabeth turned to him, her head on his chest. The city skyline pulsed beyond the windows like a heartbeat. Michael, she murmured, tracing the line of his jaw. We've been so busy. When's the last time it was just us? No meetings, no mergers. He shifted, his hand absently stroking her hair. Soon, Liz. After the dinner next week. Promise. She lifted her head, searching his eyes, those hazel depths that had once mapped her soul like uncharted code. I miss us. For a moment, vulnerability cracked his facade. I know. Me too. He pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. You're my rock, Elizabeth. Always have been. She melted into him then, the romance of their history wrapping around her like a favorite scarf. They made love slowly, rediscovering rhythms lost to schedules, and for those stolen hours, the world narrowed to just them. Whispers and sighs, the press of skin that spoke louder than any boardroom pitch. But dawn brought reality. Michael's phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand, pulling him away before the sheets had cooled. Antonella's got revisions on the pitch deck, he muttered, already scrolling. Gotta run. Elizabeth watched him dress, the door clicking shut behind him. She lay there, staring at the ceiling's intricate molding, a hollow ache settling in her chest. It wasn't jealousy, not yet. Just a quiet certainty that something was shifting, like sand underfoot on a once solid shore. The day of the dinner arrived crisp and golden, autumn leaves swirling like confetti outside the penthouse. Elizabeth chose a gown of midnight blue velvet, its neckline dipping just enough to remind Michael of the woman he'd chased through college libraries and startup pitches. She applied lipstick, deep crimson, bold, and slipped on the circuit ring, its weight a talisman. Michael arrived home early for once, his eyes lighting up as he took her in. Liz, you take my breath away. He pulled her into a dance right there in the foyer. No music, just the rhythm of their breathing. His hands on her waist felt like home, and for a moment, she let herself believe the surprise was a vow renewal or a baby moon announcement. They'd been trying for a child quietly, her doctor's visits a secret hope. Ready to make history tonight? He teased, offering his arm. With you? Always, she replied, her heart fluttering like it had on their first date. A picnic in Prospect Park with cheap wine and dreams bigger than the skyline at Le Cirque was a symphony of elegance. White linen starched to perfection, waiters gliding like shadows, the air scented with truffle oil and fresh orchids. The private room overlooked the park, fairy lights twinkling against the dusk. Their guests, 20 intimate souls, were already seated. Michael's parents, silver-haired and beaming. Elizabeth's younger sister, Clara, who idolized their fairy tale marriage. A smattering of board members and old college friends who'd witnessed the Garage to Glory arc. Antonella was there too, seated across from Michael's empty chair, her gown a sheath of liquid silver that caught every light. She smiled at Elizabeth as they entered, warm, almost sisterly. You look radiant, Elizabeth. Michael's been raving about this evening. Elizabeth returned the smile, genuine if guarded. "Thank you. It's his vision, as always." Michael pulled out her chair with flourish, his fingers brushing her shoulder, a spark that sent warmth pooling in her veins. Dinner unfolded like a well-rehearsed play, courses of foie gras and seared scallops, laughter bubbling over vintage Bordeaux. Toasts rang out, to hail Tekka's latest triumph, to enduring love. Elizabeth caught Michael's eye across the table, and he winked, that conspiratorial glint making her pulse quicken. Then, as dessert carts rolled in, towering profiteroles dusted with gold leaf, Michael stood, tapping his glass with a spoon. The room hushed, expectant. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady, commanding, "tonight isn't just about business victories. It's about personal ones. About the courage to chase what sets your soul on fire." Elizabeth's breath caught. This was it, the surprise. Her hand slipped to her napkin, twisting it beneath the table. He turned to her, eyes locking. "Elizabeth, you've been my partner in every sense. But love, true love, it evolves. It demands honesty, even when it hurts." The air thickened. Guests shifted, forks pausing midair. "I've fallen in love with someone else," Michael continued, his gaze sliding to Antonella, who lowered her eyes demurely, a flush creeping up her neck. "Antonella, she sees me, challenges me, ignites parts of me I thought were dormant. I can't pretend anymore. Elizabeth, I release you. We both deserve passion unfeigned." Gasps rippled through the room, Clara's hand flying to her mouth, Michael's mother paling. Antonella rose, graceful, extending a hand as if to bridge the chasm. Elizabeth sat frozen, the world narrowing to the candle flames dancing before her. Michael's eyes bored into hers, expectant, waiting for the tears, the scene, the dramatic unraveling he'd scripted in his mind, but she gave him nothing. No sob, no accusation, just silence, profound, unyielding, a void that swallowed his words whole. Slowly, deliberately, she set her napkin on the table, folded with precision. She rose, her chair scraping softly against the parquet floor. Every eye followed her as she smoothed her gown, chin lifted, and walked toward the door, back straight, steps measured, the click of her Louboutins echoing like a verdict. Michael's face crumpled, confusion, then dawning horror. "Elizabeth," she didn't turn. The door closed behind her with a whisper. Outside, the valet hailed her car, the cool night air a balm against her flaming cheeks. She slid into the leather seat, directing the driver home in a voice steady as steel. As the city blurred past, tears finally came, silent, hot, tracing paths down her face. But beneath them burned something fiercer, resolve, what had Michael unleashed with his grand confession. And in the quiet fortress of her silence, what truths would finally surface? What would you do in Elizabeth's shoes? Cry, scream, or stay silent? Drop a comment below with your take, and subscribe for the next act's twist. The black Maybach glided through Manhattan's rain-slicked streets like a shadow slipping between spotlights. Elizabeth sat in the back, hands folded in her lap, the emerald clutch resting untouched beside her. The partition was up. The driver hadn't spoken since she gave the address of the penthouse. Outside, the city lights fractured across wet glass. Reds, golds, blues, smearing into abstract paintings she no longer had the energy to interpret. Inside her chest, something had cracked open, but not loudly. Not with the sobs Michael had clearly rehearsed for. It was a quiet fracture, like ice under too much weight giving way in slow motion. She could still hear his voice in the private room at Le Cirque. "I've fallen in love with someone else. Antonella. She sees me, challenges me, ignites parts of me I thought were dormant." Each word had landed like a pebble dropped into still water. Ripples, not waves. And then, silence. Her silence. The most powerful thing she'd ever said without opening her mouth. She closed her eyes. Flashbacks came unbidden, soft at first, then sharper. Their first winter together, 2016. Michael's startup had just burned through its seed round. They were living on ramen and hope in a one-bedroom walk-up that smelled faintly of mildew and ambition. He'd come home at 3 a.m. after 48 hours without sleep, collapsed onto the futon beside her, and whispered against her neck, "You're the only thing that feels real right now." She'd held him until his breathing evened, then stayed awake watching snow fall past the fire escape, promising herself she'd never let him feel alone again. Another memory. Their wedding day in a small vineyard upstate. No paparazzi, no Forbes stringers, just 30 people who actually mattered. Michael had cried when she walked down the aisle in that simple lace dress. Actual tears. He'd whispered during their first dance, "I don't deserve you, Liz, but I'm going to spend my life trying." She believed him. Still did. In some stubborn chamber of her heart, the car slowed. The doorman opened her door before she could reach for the handle. Mr. Alvarez, who'd been greeting her with the same gentle "good evening, Mrs. Hale," for 8 years. "Evening, Mrs. Hale," he said now, voice softer than usual. "You're home early." She managed a small nod. "Thank you, Mr. Alvarez." The elevator ride to the 72nd floor felt eternal. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer, the lights were dimmed to the romantic setting Michael sometimes programmed from his phone. Tonight it felt like mockery. Elizabeth kicked off her heels, bare feet silent on the heated marble, and walked straight to the bar. She poured 2 fingers of the Macallan 25 Michael kept for special occasions, then carried the glass to the living room windows. The city sprawled beneath her, indifferent and glittering. Her phone buzzed once. Then again. Then a third time in rapid succession. She didn't look. Instead, she opened the balcony doors. Cold October air rushed in, carrying the faint scent of rain and exhaust. She stepped out, glass in hand, and leaned against the railing. 23 stories below, yellow cabs crawled like fireflies. The phone buzzed a 4th time. She finally glanced. "Michael, Elizabeth, please. Come back. We need to talk." "Michael, I didn't mean for it to come out like that." "Michael, Antonella, it's complicated." "Michael, answer me. Please." She set the phone face down on the glass table beside the outdoor sectional. The screen lit up again almost immediately, his name flashing like a warning light. She took a slow sip of scotch. It burned going down, grounding her. Inside, the elevator chimed. Footsteps, hurried, uneven, crossed the foyer. "Liz?" Michael appeared in the open balcony doorway, still in his tuxedo jacket, bow tie loosened, hair disheveled as though he'd run his hands through it the entire drive. His face was pale beneath the city glow. "You left," he said, stating the obvious because he didn't know what else to say. She didn't turn. "I did." He took one step onto the balcony. "You didn't say anything. Not one word." Silence answered him that he exhaled sharply. I thought you'd react. Cry. Yell. Something. Anything." She finally looked at him. "You wanted a scene. I wanted honesty. You chose a public stage for your honesty," she said quietly. "I chose silence for mine." Michael rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit she hadn't seen in years. "Antonella and I, it started as work. Late nights. Brainstorming. Then it became more. I didn't plan it. I swear." Elizabeth tilted her head. "You planned tonight." He flinched. "I wanted to be brave. To stop hiding. To give us both a clean break so we could what?" Her voice remained even, almost curious. "So you could walk away with a noble exit, and I could play the gracious ex-wife." He stepped closer. "I still love you, Liz. I do. But not the way I love her. Not anymore." The words should have gutted her. Instead, they landed like rain on already soaked earth. Absorbed, not wounding. She set the scotch down. "You love the version of yourself," she reflects back. "The visionary. The genius. The man who never has to doubt." Michael's jaw tightened. "That's not fair, isn't it?" She turned fully to face him now. "When was the last time you looked at me? Really looked, and saw more than the woman who makes everything stable while you chase the next high?" He opened his mouth, closed it. She continued, voice soft but unyielding. "I've spent 8 years being your anchor, Michael. Your soft place. Your safe harbor. And tonight you stood in front of everyone we know and told me I'm no longer enough. I didn't say, you didn't have to." He reached for her. She stepped back, small, deliberate. "Don't," she said, his hand dropped. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to feel what you've done," she answered. "Not fix it. Not explain it. Just feel it." Michael stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. "You're not going to fight for us?" "I've been fighting for us since the day we met," she said. "Tonight I stopped." The silence that followed was thicker than any she'd ever allowed before. He swallowed hard. I'll stay at the Four Seasons tonight. Give you space. She nodded once. He lingered another moment, searching her face for cracks, for tears, for anything he could recognize. Finding none, he turned and walked back inside. The elevator doors closed behind him with a soft chime. Elizabeth stood alone on the balcony until the cold seeped into her bones. Only then did she go inside, lock the balcony doors, and walk to their bedroom. His and hers. She opened the closet. His side was half empty already, suits missing, probably at Anthonila's sleek Tribeca loft. She pulled one of his old MIT hoodies from the back, the one he'd worn during their first all-nighter together. It still smelled faintly of him. She didn't cry. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed, hoodie in her lap, and let the silence wrap around her like armor. Her phone buzzed again. Clara this time. Clara. Liz, are you okay? Everyone's freaking out. Michael just left looking like he'd been gut-punched. What happened? Call me. Elizabeth typed one line. I'm fine. Need time. Love you. She powered the phone off. Then she stood, walked to the en-suite bathroom, and looked at herself in the mirror. Makeup still flawless, eyes clear, chin steady. She whispered to her reflection, barely audible, "You didn't break." And for the first time in months, maybe years, she believed it. Downstairs in the lobby, Michael stood frozen beside the doorman's desk, phone clutched like a lifeline. Anthonila's name lit up the screen. For missed calls, 3 texts that he didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the elevator doors, replaying Elizabeth's silence in his mind like a loop he couldn't pause. What had he expected? Tears. Anger. Begging. What he got was a mirror, and the reflection was uglier than he'd ever imagined. He stepped outside into the rain, letting it soak through his tuxedo, hoping the cold would numb whatever was clawing inside his chest that it didn't. Across the city, in her minimalist Tribeca apartment, Anthonila refreshed Twitter for the 3rd time. Whispers were already spreading. Anonymous posts, vague subtweets. Big tech mobile drops bomb at private dinner tonight. Saw the wife walk out like a queen. No drama. Just gone. Anthonila smiled at first, small, satisfied. Then she frowned. Elizabeth hadn't cried. Elizabeth hadn't fought. And somehow, that felt more dangerous than any outburst ever could. Back at the penthouse, Elizabeth opened her laptop and began typing. An email to her lawyer. Subject line. Contingency planning. She didn't send it. Not yet, but the draft sat there, blinking cursor steady as a heartbeat. The night stretched on. Silence reigned. And somewhere in that quiet, the real story, the one Michael had tried to end with a speech, began. What happens when the woman who always spoke softly finally chooses not to speak at all? If Elizabeth's silence hit you hard, drop a comment. Would you have stayed quiet too, or exploded? Dawn crept over Manhattan like an unwelcome guest, painting the penthouse in muted grays and reluctant golds. Elizabeth hadn't slept, not truly. She'd drifted in and out of shallow dozes on the couch, wrapped in Michael's old MIT hoodie, the fabric a bittersweet cocoon. The Scotch glass sat empty on the coffee table, a lone sentinel beside her untouched phone. She'd left it off all night, the world's noise held at bay by a single power button. Now, as the clock ticked past 6 a.m., she rose stiffly, padding to the kitchen in bare feet. The marble island gleamed under recessed lights, a sterile expanse where she and Michael used to share midnight snacks after late-night strategy sessions. She brewed coffee, strong, black, the way he liked it, out of habit, then poured a second cup she didn't need. The steam curled upward, carrying notes of vanilla and earth, a scent that tugged at memories she wasn't ready to unpack. Her phone powered on with a series of chimes, 32 notifications in 12 hours. Texts from Clara, Michael's mother, even a tentative email from the Hale Foundation's board chair. We've heard rumors. Are you all right? The gala tomorrow. Do we proceed? Elizabeth scrolled past them all, thumb hovering over Michael's name. 27 messages. The latest, sent at 4:52 a.m. Michael, I can't sleep. I keep seeing your face. The way you walked out. Please, Liz. Let me explain. I never wanted to hurt you like this. She deleted the thread without reading further. Not out of spite. Out of self-preservation. Silence wasn't just her weapon now. It was her shield. She dressed simply. Yoga pants, a soft cashmere sweater, flats, and left the penthouse before the city fully woke. The elevator descended in hushed efficiency. depositing her in the lobby where Mr. Alvarez waited with her coat. "Mrs. Hale?" he said, eyes kind but probing. "Rough night." She offered a small smile, the first real one since Le Cirque. "Just a long one, Mr. Alvarez." "Thank you." The streets were alive with early risers, joggers in neon, vendors unfolding carts of steaming bagels and coffee. Elizabeth walked to Central Park, the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot a rhythmic counterpoint to her thoughts. She found their bench, the one near the Bethesda fountain where Michael had proposed, the circuit ring glinting in the summer sun as he knelt with a nervous grin. "You're my algorithm for happiness," he joked, voice thick. She'd laughed through tears, pulling him up for a kiss that tasted like forever. Now she sat alone, tracing the plaque they'd added years later. Elizabeth and Michael Hale, Code for Love, 2016. The wood was weathered, initials carved deeper by time and touch. Tourists milled past, oblivious, but Elizabeth felt exposed, as if the park itself remembered. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A call this time. "Clara," she answered. "Hey." "Oh my God, Liz," Clara rushed, voice a mix of sisterly panic and New York bluntness. "What the hell happened?" "Michael texted Mom at midnight saying you two are taking space. Mom called me crying. And Twitter, holy shit, it's blowing up. Hashtag Hail Heartbreak is trending." Elizabeth leaned back against the bench, eyes on the fountain spray. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" "He announced he's in love with that Vargas woman. At your anniversary dinner? In front of everyone? Liz, you walked out like some ice queen from a movie. Everyone's saying you're plotting revenge or something." "I'm not plotting," Elizabeth said softly. "I'm just breathing." Clara paused, the line crackling with unspoken worry. "You deserve better than this. You've always been the strong one. But strong doesn't mean silent. Yell at him. Sue him. Something. Maybe silence is my something." Elizabeth watched a couple stroll by, hands linked, lost in their own world. "I need time, Clara. Tell Mom I'm okay. I'll call her tonight. Promise. Promise." She hung up, pocketed the phone, and walked deeper into the park, past the Ramble's twisted paths, where she and Michael had once gotten hilariously lost on a spontaneous adventure date, ending in laughter and a picnic of stolen museum sandwiches. The memory stung, but she let it, examining it like a bruise to gauge its depth. By mid-morning, she was at the Hale Foundation offices in Midtown, a sunlit loft space she'd designed herself, walls lined with children's artwork from literacy programs they'd funded. Her assistant, Lena, met her at the door with wide eyes and a hug. "Mrs. H." "Elizabeth," Lena corrected, pulling back. The board's in a tizzy. Reporters sniffing around downstairs. "And Michael called twice, said it's urgent." "Screen them," Elizabeth said calmly, hanging her coat. "Reschedule the gala planning for next week. Focus on the Brooklyn reading centers. I want updates on the scholarships by noon." Lena nodded, admiration flickering in her gaze. "You got it." Alone in her office, Elizabeth sank into her chair, the city skyline a panoramic distraction beyond the glass. She opened her laptop, intending to dive into grant proposals, but her fingers betrayed her, pulling up old photos instead. There they were. She and Michael at the TechCrunch Disrupt after party, her in a borrowed gown, him whispering, "We did it, Liz. All because of you." Another. Their honeymoon in Tuscany, tangled in vineyard sheets, his hand splayed protectively over her still flat belly. Before the losses, the quiet griefs they'd buried under board meetings and buyouts. Tears pricked now, hot and insistent. She let a few fall, blotting them with a tissue before they could smear her resolve. Across town, Michael's world was contracting like a virus eating code. He'd checked into the Four Seasons at 2 a.m., the suite's opulence, marble baths, Egyptian linens, mocking his isolation. He'd paced until dawn, phone in hand, firing off messages Elizabeth ignored. By 8 a.m., his inbox was a war zone. Board members CNG concerned emails about personal distractions impacting Hale Tech's image, investors pulling back on a key funding round, even his own mother leaving a voicemail laced with disappointment. "Michael, what have you done to that beautiful girl?" He showered scalding hot, as if steam could wash away the regret gnawing at his ribs. Dressed in a crisp button-down and slacks, casual armor, he headed to the Hale Tech headquarters in Hudson Yards. The glass tower loomed like a monolith, his name etched in steel above the revolving doors. The elevator to the 45th floor hummed with tension. His executive assistant, Raj, met him with a tablet and a grimace. "Morning, sir. The team's waiting in the war room. And, the press is circling. That dinner thing, it's everywhere." Michael nodded curtly. "Handle it." No comments. The war room buzzed with averted eyes and shuffled papers. Antonella sat at the far end of the conference table, legs crossed, her silver sheath from last night replaced by a power suit of charcoal wool. She looked composed, almost regal, until their eyes met. Hers held a question, his a storm. "Update on the AI pivot?" Michael barked, taking his seat at the head. His CTO, Sarah, cleared her throat. "Numbers are solid, but sentiment's shifting. Investors are jittery after last night. Whispers about stability. Yours." Michael's grip tightened on his pen. "My stability?" Sarah exchanged glances with the others. "The announcement. It's personal, but it bleeds into professional. We need a unified front." Antonella leaned forward, voice smooth as silk. "Michael and I have been discussing a joint statement, emphasizing that our collaboration, personal and professional, strengthens Hailtech's vision." The room stilled. Michael felt eyes on him like lasers that he forced a smile. "We'll circle back. Focus on deliverables." The meeting dragged, metrics dissected, timelines compressed, but the undercurrent was inescapable. Whispers followed him to his office. He really did it. Dumped her in front of everyone. Antonella's ambitious, but this? Timing's off. Alone behind his desk, Michael loosened his tie, staring at the framed photo of him and Elizabeth at the Met Gala. Her in sapphire, him beaming like he'd won the lottery. He'd bought that dress for her, whispered in her ear amid the flashbulbs. "You outshine them all." His phone rang. Antonella. He answered. "What, darling?" she purred. "You vanished last night. I thought we'd celebrate. Come over tonight? I've got that vintage Barolo you like." Michael pinched the bridge of his nose. "Not now." A pause, then her tone sharpened. "The board's circling. We need to show strength. Together." "Together," he echoed, the word tasting like ash. "What is this to you, Antonella? Really? Another beat. Opportunity. Synergy. You said it yourself. We ignite each other." Elizabeth was safe. "I'm the future." He hung up without a word. Her indignant Michael, cut off mid-syllable. Regret hit like a system crash. Blue screen, total freeze. He grabbed his keys, ignoring Raj's protests, and drove to the one place he knew she might be, the foundation offices. The doorman waved him up, but Lena blocked the hallway. "Mr. Hale. She's in a meeting. Tell her it's urgent." Lena hesitated, then knocked softly on the office door. A murmur, then, "Send him in." Elizabeth looked up from her desk, composed as ever, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, a stack of proposals before her. No trace of the vulnerability he'd glimpsed on the balcony. "Michael." One word. Flat, neutral. He closed the door. "Liz, please. We need to talk." She gestured to the chair opposite. "About everything. Last night, I was an idiot. Arrogant. I thought declaring it would make it clean, noble. But your silence, it's killing me." She steepled her fingers. "Silence isn't meant to kill. It's meant to let truth breathe." He leaned forward. "The truth is I panicked. The empire's growing so fast, and I felt lost." Antonella was excitement, validation. "But she's not you. She never could be." Elizabeth's expression didn't shift. "And what am I, Michael? Still your anchor? Or just the woman who didn't cry on cue?" "You're everything." Desperation edged his voice. "Come home. Let me make this right." She stood, walking to the window, arms crossed. "I am home. Here. Where I build things that last." He rose too, closing the distance. "I'll end it with her. Today. Publicly, if you want. I'll step back from the board, take time off. Whatever it takes." Elizabeth turned, eyes meeting his. Hazel on hazel, mirrors of shared history. "Whatever it takes sounds like a transaction. What about what it costs?" Michael reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but didn't hold on either. "I cost us everything," he whispered. "But I'm begging for a chance to earn it back." For the first time since the dinner, her voice softened, just a fraction. "Earning it starts with listening, not fixing. Go home, Michael. Think about why you needed that stage. I'll be here when you know." He searched her face, finding no give, no easy absolution. "Liz, go." He left, the door clicking shut like a lock turning. Elizabeth sank back into her chair, exhaling a breath she'd held too long. Her phone lit up. Clara again. Saw Michael leaving your office. He looked wrecked. You good? She typed, getting there. One breath at a time. Outside, Michael slid into his car, hands gripping the wheel until knuckles whitened. Anthonila's texts piled up, demanding, then accusatory. He drafted a response. It's over. All of it. But before he could send, his phone rang. His mentor, Harlan, the grizzled VC who'd bankrolled Hailtech's first round. Kid, Harlan growled. You've got a mess. Board spooked. Investors pulling. And that Vargas? She's shopping her resume already. Clean this up, or I will. Michael stared at the skyline, Elizabeth's words echoing. What about what it costs? For the first time, he wondered if the cost was him. Back at the foundation, Elizabeth opened a drawer, pulling out a small velvet box. The earrings he'd given her for their 5th anniversary, sapphires that matched her eyes. She'd worn them to the dinner. Now she set them aside, not in anger, but in clarity. Healing wasn't silence forever. It was choosing when to speak. But as the afternoon sun dipped low, a knock came. Urgent, insistent. Lena poked her head in. Elizabeth, it's Anthonila. She's here, demanding to see you. Elizabeth's pulse quickened. The opportunist at her door. What game would the other woman play now? Elizabeth's strength is unreal. Would you confront the mistress or keep the silence going? Comment your strategy below, smash that like button if you're hooked on the drama, and subscribe. The knock on Elizabeth's office door echoed like a thunderclap in the quiet loft, sharp, demanding, laced with the kind of entitlement that came from boardrooms and backroom deals. Lena's voice filtered through, hesitant. Elizabeth? It's Anthonila. She insists. Elizabeth straightened in her chair, the velvet box of sapphire earrings still open on her desk like an unfinished sentence. Her pulse thrummed, not with fear, but with a crystalline clarity she'd been honing since the dinner. Silence had been her armor. Now, it was time to test its edge. Send her in, Elizabeth said, voice steady as the foundation's grant ledgers. The door swung open, and Anthonila Vargas swept in like a storm cloud in stilettos. Charcoal suit hugging her frame like a second skin, bob haircut slicing the air with precision, eyes narrowed to slits of calculated fury. She didn't wait for an invitation. She closed the door with a deliberate click and planted herself in the chair opposite, crossing her legs with a whisper of silk stockings. Elizabeth, Anthonila began, her accent a velvet-wrapped blade, Colombian roots polished by Ivy League edges. We need to talk. Elizabeth met her gaze evenly, fingers steepled. Do we? Anthonila's lips curved, but it wasn't a smile, it was a baring of teeth. Don't play coy. Michael's ghosting me. After last night, after he chose me in front of God and gala guests, you'd think he'd at least have the decency to follow through. But no. Radio silence. And now the board's whispering about instability. My resume's already out there, darling. I won't be collateral in your marital meltdown. Elizabeth let the words hang, absorbing them like rain on parched soil. No flinch, no retort, just the quiet assessment of a woman who'd spent years navigating Michael's tempests. You're here, Elizabeth said finally, because you thought this was a promotion, not a scandal. Anthonila's eyes flashed. It was a promotion. Michael and I, we're visionaries. Synergy. You're the relic. The pretty arm candy who smiles for the cameras while he builds empires. He told me himself. Elizabeth keeps the home fires burning. But you set me ablaze. The words sliced, deeper than Elizabeth expected, carving into the tender places where old insecurities hid. Michael had said that? In some late-night haze of hotel sheets and whispered ambitions? She pictured it. His head on Anthonila's pillow, vulnerability spilling like code he couldn't debug, her listening with the rapt attention of someone who saw dollar signs in every confession. But Elizabeth didn't shatter. She leaned forward slightly, voice low and even. And what did he say about the nights he came home to me? The mornings I held him when the deals fell through? The way I saw him, not the billionaire, but the boy from Queens who coded his first app on a borrowed laptop. Anthonila uncrossed her legs, leaning into a mirror of aggression. Romantic drivel. He needs fire, not embers. Last night was his liberation. Yours too. Take the alimony, the penthouse, whatever golden parachute you negotiated. but stay out of our way." Elizabeth's laugh was soft, almost pitying, not for Antonella, but for the illusion she clutched. Liberation? Is that what you call it when a man declares his truth and watches his wife walk away unbroken? You expected tears from me too, didn't you? A scene to validate your victory. Antonella's composure cracked, a micro fissure quickly sealed. I expected reality. Women like you don't just vanish. You cling. You bargain. And women like you. Elizabeth countered, her tone gentle but unyielding. You conquer. Until the throne's empty. The room hung heavy with subtext, the unspoken tally of power plays, the invisible ledger of who owed whom. Antonella's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, Michael's name, and silenced it with a flick. He's choosing, she said, more to herself than Elizabeth. He has to. Choosing starts with truth, Elizabeth replied. Not conquest. Antonella stood abruptly, gathering her bag like a shield. This isn't over. Enjoy your silence while it lasts. She turned on her heel, the door slamming behind her like a punctuation mark. Elizabeth exhaled, the air leaving her in a rush. The confrontation hadn't drained her, it had clarified. She closed the velvet box, slipping it into her drawer. Not discarded. Just paused. Her phone lit up almost immediately. Michael again. She answered this time, surprising herself. Liz. His voice was raw, edged with exhaustion. Where are you? Harlan just called. The board's demanding a meeting. Antonella's stirring shit, saying I misled her. I need you. I'm at the foundation, she said. No warmth. No ice. Just fact. I'm coming over. We talk. Now. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, the office door opened without a knock. Michael stormed in, disheveled in the same slacks from morning, tie askew, eyes wild with the frantic energy of a man debugging a fatal error. He locked the door behind him, pacing the small space like a caged algorithm. She's unhinged, he burst out. Antonella just cornered the CTO, spinning some narrative that I'm unstable, that the affair, the mistake, is tanking the stock. Harlan's threatening to pull funding unless I get my house in order. Liz, this is spiraling because of me, but I can fix it if you'll just sit down. Elizabeth interrupted, gesturing to the chair Antonella had vacated. It wasn't a request. He froze, then obeyed, collapsing into the seat, elbows on knees, head in hands. I ended it. Texted her an hour ago. It's over. Don't contact me. But she's weaponizing it. And the press. God, the press is feasting. Elizabeth watched him, a man who'd built billions from nothing, now unraveling at the seams of his own making. Pity stirred, mingling with the ache of betrayal. You chose the stage, Michael. Now face the audience. He looked up, eyes red-rimmed. I know. I was so damn arrogant. Thought I could script the ending. Grand gesture, clean break. Everyone applauds my honesty. But your silence, it stripped me bare. Made me see what an ass I am. She moved to the window, arms crossed, the skyline a steel gray backdrop to her silhouette. Arrogance isn't new. It's the root. When did I stop being enough? Was it the first Forbes cover? The private jet? Or just me? Michael stood, closing the distance but stopping short, respecting the invisible line her silence had drawn. It was never you. It was me. The rise, it isolated me. Everyone wants something. Investors, board, hangers-on. You just loved me. No agenda. And I started resenting that. Thought love should feel like a rush, not a constant. Antonella was the rush, flattery, challenge, the illusion of being seen as the titan, not the tired husband. Elizabeth turned, tears glistening but unshed. And I was the tired wife? The one who planned literacy programs while you chased synergy in hotel bars. He winced. Yes. No. God. Liz, I projected. Pushed you away because facing you meant facing myself. The insecurities, the kid from Queens who still wakes up terrified it'll all vanish. You saw through it always. Steady. Loving. I didn't deserve it then, and I sure as hell don't now. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something in her. The wall she'd built brick by silent brick. She stepped closer, close enough to smell his cologne mingled with desperation. Then why the dinner? Why public humiliation? Because I wanted absolution, he admitted, voice breaking. If you cried, fought, it would have justified me, made me the villain with a tragic arc. Your silence? It forced me to be the villain without the drama. Just small. Pathetic. Tears escaped now, tracing silver paths down Elizabeth's cheeks. She didn't wipe them. You broke us, Michael. 8 years of building. Our home, our dreams, the quiet ways we fit. I lay awake nights wondering if I was enough, if the miscarriages made me less, if supporting your empire meant losing mine. And you chose a spotlight over our shadow. He dropped to his knees then, not theatrical, but broken, reaching for her hands. She let him take them, his palms warm and trembling against her cool skin. I'm on my knees because that's where I belong. Begging, not for pity, for a chance to rebuild. I'll sell the jet. Step down from the board. Go public. Tell the world I was wrong. That Antonella was a mistake. That you're my everything. Therapy, dates, whatever you need. Just don't let me go. Elizabeth sank to her level, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the charged space between. I wanted to hate you. It would have been easier. But hate doesn't fit us. It never did. I love you, he whispered, the words of vow stripped bare. Not the idea. Not the anchor. You, the woman who walks away unbroken, who loves without conditions. Forgive me, please. The dam broke then, tears flowing freely, hers and his, mingling as she cupped his face. I forgive you, she said, voice a fragile thread. Not because it's simple, because love isn't. It's choosing you, flaws, empire, all, every day. He kissed her then, tentative, reverent, lips brushing like the first line of code in a new program. She responded, pulling him closer, the kiss deepening into memory and promise. Salt of tears, sweetness of rediscovery, the spark that had built their world reigniting. They rose together, wrapped in each other, when a sharp knock shattered the moment. Elizabeth, Lena's voice, urgent. Harlan Graves is here. For Michael. Says it's non-negotiable. Michael pulled back, wiping his face, steeling himself. Harlan, the grizzled mentor, the VC who'd bet on him when no one else would, now the wild card in their fragile truce. Stay, Michael murmured, squeezing her hand. Please. She nodded, heart pounding. Harlan burst in without waiting, burly frame filling the doorway, silver beard framing a scowl that could curdle mergers. Michael, you idiot, Harlan growled, eyes flicking to Elizabeth with a softening. Ruined a good thing for a flash in the pan. Board's voting tonight. Your head on the block unless you clean this mess. Michael straightened, arm around Elizabeth's waist. Then vote. I'm done chasing shadows. Antonella's out. The affair was a mistake. Elizabeth's my partner, in life, in Hail Tech. Always was. Harlan's gaze sharpened, assessing. And you, girl? After this circus? Elizabeth met his eyes, chin lifted. I'm choosing us. Again. But on our terms. Harlan barked a laugh, rough, approving. Damn. Silence suits you. All right, kid, press conference tomorrow. You own it, or it owns you. He clapped Michael's shoulder, nodding to Elizabeth. Don't screw this up. She's the real empire. The door closed behind him, leaving them in the afterglow of chaos turned catalyst. Michael turned to her, eyes shining. We can do this. Together. She smiled, true, tentative. We will. But first, dinner. Just us. No stages. As they gathered their things, Elizabeth's phone buzzed. A text from Antonella. He's mine. You'll see. The threat lingered, a shadow on their light. But in Elizabeth's hand, Michael's felt like sunlight. What dark turn would Antonella take next to claw back her prize? That kiss had me tearing up. Forgiveness hits different. Comment. Could you forgive like Elizabeth? Or is it a hard no? The press conference the next morning unfolded in Hail Tech's sun-drenched atrium, a glass-domed cathedral of innovation where Michael had once unveiled breakthroughs that reshaped industries. Today, it felt more like a confessional, the air thick with the hum of cameras and the murmur of reporters who'd smelled blood in the headlines. Elizabeth stood off stage, hidden in the wings, her hand pressed to the cool metal of a support beam. She wasn't here for the spectacle. She was here for the man who was about to bare his soul, or what was left of it. Michael stepped to the podium in a simple navy suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up, a deliberate nod to the Queen's kid he'd buried under layers of billionaire polish. Flashes popped like erratic code, and he raised a hand, silencing the room with the authority that had built empires. Thank you for coming. He began, voice steady but laced with gravel from a sleepless night. Last night, over the weekend actually, my wife and I faced a personal crisis. One I created. I stood before our closest friends and family and declared something foolish, that I'd fallen out of love with the woman who's been my partner, my compass, for 8 years. I was wrong. Profoundly, arrogantly wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A reporter from TechCrunch leaned forward, mic poised. "Mr. Hale, are you addressing the affair with Antonella Vargas?" Michael met the question head-on, no evasion. Yes, it was a mistake born of ego and exhaustion. Antonella is a brilliant professional. Her work at Hale Tech will continue if she chooses, but what I called love was infatuation. A distraction from the real work of marriage and leadership. I've ended it. Completely. And I've asked my wife, Elizabeth, to forgive me. Because Hale Tech isn't just code and capital, it's built on the foundation she helped lay. Without her, it's nothing. He paused, throat working. To the board, investors, team, I'm taking a step back. A sabbatical. To rebuild what's truly valuable. Harlan Graves has my full support as interim chair. And to Elizabeth. His voice cracked, eyes finding her in the shadows. I'm sorry. Publicly. Privately. Every way that matters. The room erupted, questions flying like shrapnel, but Michael stepped away, ignoring the chaos. Security cleared a path, and he found her backstage, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it." He reached for her hand. She let him, fingers lacing with a tentative warmth. "Come home." She nodded. Home. Antonella's retaliation came swift and venomous. A blistering email to the board leaked to Variety by noon, betrayed by Hale's hypocrisy. Walking away from a toxic regime. By evening, her LinkedIn was updated, open to new opportunities. Visionaries only. The headline spun her as the jilted muse, but the narrative shifted overnight. Elizabeth's silence at the dinner had become legend, whispers of her grace, turning her into an icon of quiet power. Antonella's barbs landed like pebbles against a fortress. The fallout was hers alone, her reputation singed by opportunism unmasked. Michael didn't gloat. He deleted the alerts, poured 2 glasses of the Brolo Antonella had once touted, and joined Elizabeth on the penthouse balcony. The city lights stretched below, a constellation of second chances. To us, he toasted, clinking glasses. The real us. She sipped, the wine rich and tart. To truth. They talked then, not in the frantic confessions of the office, but in the slow unraveling of threads pulled too tight. He shared the therapy appointment he'd booked for them both, a couples counselor recommended by Harlan, no expense spared but ego checked at the door. She spoke of the foundation's expansion plans, how she'd channeled the pain into a new initiative, silent voices, grants for women rebuilding after betrayal, funding therapy and career pivots without the glare of judgment. "You're incredible," he murmured, pulling her close. The kiss that followed was unhurried, a rediscovery, lips tracing apologies, hands mapping forgiveness. They made love that night in the penthouse bed, sheets tangling like old habits reformed. Gentle, attentive, her gasps his North Star. No rush, no performance. Just them, skin to skin, hearts sinking after months of static. The weeks blurred into a montage of mending, therapy sessions in a sunlit brownstone office, where they dissected the affair like faulty code. Root causes, his isolation, her quiet endurance, bugs, unspoken resentments, patches, weekly check-ins, no more late-night work calls. Michael sold the jet, a quiet transaction, proceeds funneled to the foundation, and traded boardroom battles for hands-on philanthropy. Reading to kids in Brooklyn centers, his billionaire baritone stumbling over Dr. Seuss to their delight. Elizabeth watched him one afternoon, sprawled on a colorful rug with wide-eyed third-graders, and felt the thaw in her chest deepen to warmth. Their re-dates were deliberate romances, echoes of their early days, stripped of excess. A picnic in Prospect Park with cheap wine and takeout falafel, where he confessed over falafel crumbs. "I forgot how to court you. How to see you as the adventure, not the safety net." She laughed, feeding him a grape. "Then woo me, Mr. Hale." Properly. He did. Camlet walks along the High Line, where autumn leaves crunched underfoot like forgiven mistakes. A weekend in the Catskills cabin they'd honeymooned in. No staff, just a fire crackling and her head on his shoulder as stars wheeled overhead. "I love you," he'd whisper into her hair, every night, like a mantra recompiled. The woman who chose silence over spectacle, strength over surrender. One evening in November, as snow dusted the penthouse windows, Clara arrived with takeout tie and prying eyes. "You two look disgustingly happy," she teased, chopsticks waving. "Spill. How'd you pull off the miracle?" Elizabeth glanced at Michael, his arm draped casually over her shoulders. "Silence," she said simply. It gave us space to hear each other. Clara rolled her eyes. "Deep. But seriously, Anthonila's ghosting everyone. Last I heard, she's pitching some startup in Silicon Valley. Alone." Michael shrugged, no bitterness. Her loss. The real test came mid-December. Harlan's holiday gala. A glittering affair at the plaza where the elite converged to toast fortunes and forget feuds. Elizabeth hesitated. Memories of loose cirque still sharp, but Michael knelt by the bed that morning, circuit ring in hand. "We don't have to go, but if we do, together. As us." She slipped into sapphire silk, the dress from their Met Gala photo, and took his arm. The ballroom swirled with champagne flutes and whispered scandals, but heads turned not in pity, but admiration. Whispers followed. "Look at them, stronger than before." Michael's hand never left the small of her back, a silent vow amid the chatter. At midnight, as fireworks burst over the park, he pulled her to the dance floor, a slow waltz to an old Ella Fitzgerald standard. "Remember our wedding dance?" he murmured, cheek to hers. "I stepped on your toes 3 times. She smiled against his collar. "And I loved every misstep." Halfway through the song, he stopped, sinking to one knee amid the swirling gowns. Gasps rippled outward, the room holding its breath. "Elizabeth," he said, voice carrying like a launch code. 8 years ago, I promised to build a life with you. I faltered. I broke us. But in your silence, you showed me grace I didn't earn. Marry me again, not to erase the past, but to rewrite our future. Every day, choosing you. Will you?" Tears welled, hers this time, freely given. She pulled him up, kissing him fiercely as applause thundered. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." The renewed vows came on New Year's Eve, intimate and unscripted, just family, Harlan as witness, in the same Central Park gazebo where it began. Snow fell soft as confetti. Clara officiated with a grin and a tissue box. Michael wore his old MIT hoodie under a coat. Elizabeth, the lace wedding dress from upstate, timeless. "I vow," Michael said, hands clasped in hers, "to listen in your silences, to love in your strengths, to be the partner who lifts, not burdens." "And I," Elizabeth replied, eyes shining, "vow to speak my truths, to forgive your falls, to choose us, in quiet and in storm." Rings exchanged, his a new band etched with silent code for love, and they sealed it with a kiss that tasted of redemption, salt and snow, promise and peace. As midnight struck, fireworks bloomed overhead, Clara whooping, Harlan clapping Michael's back with a gruff, "Knew you had it in you, kid." Later, in the penthouse warmed by a roaring fire, they curled together on the couch. Wine forgotten, bodies entwined. "What now?" Michael whispered, tracing her ring finger. "Now," Elizabeth said, head on his chest, "we live it. The romance we almost lost." He kissed her forehead. "The one your silence saved." Months turned to seasons. The empire steadied under Harlan's interim hand, while Michael mentored from the sidelines. His focus sharpened, not scattered. The foundation thrived, silent voices expanding to retreats where women like Elizabeth found their words. Anthonila faded to a footnote, a cautionary tweet, then silence. Her synergy startups folding under the weight of her scorched bridges. One spring morning, as cherry blossoms dusted the park paths, Elizabeth woke to Michael's note on the pillow. "Coffee's brewing. Walk. Love you, flaws and all." She smiled, joining him at the bench. Their bench, hands linked, watching joggers blur past. "Silence was my gift to us," she said softly, leaning into him. "Space for your voice to find mine again." He squeezed her hand. "And your voice, it's the code I live by." In the quiet spaces between heartbeats, love whispered its deepest truth, not in grand declarations, but in the courage to forgive, to rebuild, to choose, every day. Their story didn't end with applause that it bloomed in the afterglow. Complete. What a ride. Love, betrayal, and that epic comeback. If Elizabeth's journey moved you, comment. What's your go-to move in a heartbreak, silence, or showdown? Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.